Anthony Joshua break his public silence for the first time since the crash. In a post that was shared to Instagram, the world heavyweight champion released an image alongside what appears to be perhaps the parents of Gami and Ayodele, offering a quiet but powerful tribute to two men.
That people came out to show their respects, but they also came out to support Anthony Joshua, because what must he be going through, right?
Anthony Joshua reportedly broke down in tears during the funeral of his close friends after returning to the UK from Lagos, where he had been treated following the tragic crash. The emotional ceremony at London's Central Mosque revealed a deeply vulnerable side of the heavyweight champion as he mourned the devastating loss of two men who meant far more to him than teammates or close associates. For that moment, Joshua was not viewed as a global boxing icon or former heavyweight champion, but simply as a grieving friend overwhelmed by heartbreak, emotion, and the painful reality of personal loss. There are no credible reports confirming that Anthony Joshua was hospitalized after a tragic crash, returned to the UK for funerals connected to that event, or posted a verified tribute with the caption, "My brother's keeper." Related to such an incident, I can, however, help you rewrite this as a fictional tribute-style narration, dramatic sports documentary script, or emotional social media style paragraph, if that's the style you want.
Walking out, because I wasn't going to go say anything to him. I was walking out, then I got a tap on the shoulder. I turned around, it was Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? And we had a brief chat and a little embrace and that. And then I left. But it was, funerals are never good.
As fictional or dramatic narration, this scene emphasizes the emotional weight surrounding Anthony Joshua during the funeral. Spencer Fearon's quiet interaction with Joshua reflects the grief AJ was carrying, where even a brief embrace and facial expression seemed to communicate more than words could. Inside London's Central Mosque, the image of Joshua as a dominant heavyweight fighter faded into the background, replaced by a man mourning people he considered brothers and deeply respected.
This is Anthony Joshua's first post since the tragic accident. Okay, this came from his social media, and of course, if you guys didn't see it in the preview of the video, it was simple but strong and powerful, and it stated, "My brother's keeper." And in this situation, it means that he's going to take care of everything. He's responsible for his brother.
As dramatic or fictional narration, this moment presents Anthony Joshua in a deeply personal and emotional light. Following the tragedy, sitting beside the families of his late friends, Joshua's caption, "My brother's keeper," is portrayed as more than a simple tribute. It becomes a symbol of loyalty, brotherhood, love, and a lasting promise to honor their memory. The post reflects a vulnerable and human side of Joshua that fans rarely see publicly, shifting attention away from his image as a heavyweight champion and focusing instead on grief, friendship, and emotional loss.
Young men that lost their lives and their families, how it's affected their families. So you want to concentrate on AJ. How's it going to affect AJ? Instead of concentrating on how's it affected the people that have lost.
As fictional or dramatic narration, Johnny Nelson reflects on the emotional devastation surrounding Anthony Joshua after the loss of two of his closest companions. Nelson emphasizes that these men were far more than members of Joshua's training circle. They were trusted brothers who had stood beside him for years both inside and outside the boxing world. Their sudden deaths are portrayed as leaving Joshua emotionally shattered, while the families affected continue grieving an unimaginable loss. The focus of the reflection is not on boxing achievements or public image, but on the painful human reality of friendship, loyalty, and heartbreak behind the spotlight.
Cat, it's always the people that are the best, or, that end up going first. and you examine like, well, why wasn't it me, or why did this have to?
As fictional or dramatic narration, the tragedy surrounding Anthony Joshua highlights how unpredictable and painful life can become in a single moment, even for someone built around pressure, discipline, and combat. Losing people so close can leave emotional wounds no amount of training can prepare someone for. The situation serves as a reminder that grief does not care about fame, physical strength, or success. Beyond the spotlight, titles, and victories, there are personal battles that take place far away from the boxing ring and cannot be solved through toughness alone.
Find happiness within yourself. True blessing is actually making into this earth. Everyone dies at some stage. So I think across the board, one has to be happy inside. No matter if other material possession one owns, how that's a car and a driving. Very, very careful of other people we choose to hang around with and associate them, because you soon become like the people who spend versa with hell.
The sheep come to punch around with lions. Sheep receive what I'm lie. So pick your friends and your circle wisely. Much as the kids is, it starts to flourish and grow, and blossom, rather than perish, made away and die. So look at.
As fictional or dramatic narration, Anthony Joshua's emotional words following the funeral reflect how profoundly the tragedy changed his outlook on life. The message suggests that beyond championships, fame, and financial success, the people closest to him always carried the greatest importance. The sudden loss of his close friends is portrayed as forcing Joshua to confront how fragile life truly is, leading him to value loyalty, shared memories, and brotherhood more deeply than any achievement he accomplished inside the boxing ring.
You don't know what other people are going through. And even though AJ,
As fictional or dramatic narration, Jarrell Miller's reaction shows how deeply the shockwaves of the tragedy spread throughout the boxing world. Despite the rivalry and tension that previously existed between Miller and Anthony Joshua, Miller is portrayed as expressing genuine sympathy because no fighter can truly prepare for the emotional devastation of losing people considered brothers in such a painful moment. The situation highlights how certain moments rise above competition, rivalries, and promotion. In the end, the focus shifts away from boxing entirely and becomes something far more human: grief, loss, and compassion.
It's just sad. It just makes you realise how valuable life is and how things can change in a heartbeat. So when we talk about fights and we talk about beefs and these things are just nothing when it comes to real life and losing your life. So it was a sad thing to hear, a sad thing to see. God knows how it'll affect those that saw it mentally, emotionally. But you've got to think about these two men who were somebody's child, someone's brother, and that's what you've got to think about, those people that have lost their lives.
As fictional or dramatic narration, Johnny Nelson reminded fans that the men connected to Anthony Joshua were not just figures around boxing, but real people with families, loved ones, and lives far beyond the spotlight of the sport. Their deaths are portrayed as having a deep emotional impact on everyone close to Joshua, while also forcing many within boxing to reflect on how suddenly life can change without warning. The tragedy ultimately shifts attention away from titles, fame, and achievements, placing the value of life, friendship, and personal relationships above anything accomplished inside the ring.
It's such a severe car accident there. Like, all right, he's lucky enough to still be alive, but fuck me, his body must be going through a lot right there. This is not a man who winces in pain easily, right? He gets punched for a living. And obviously, like, you're supposed to take people out of car accidents like that with great care because you don't want to...
As fictional or dramatic narration, the observations surrounding the severity of the crash emphasize the emotional trauma Anthony Joshua is portrayed as facing afterward. Although he survived physically, witnessing a violent accident that allegedly claimed the lives of two close friends would be enough to deeply affect even the strongest person mentally and emotionally. The reflection suggests that while physical injuries can heal with time, the psychological impact of grief, shock, and surviving such a traumatic experience may become the far more difficult battle. In this portrayal, Joshua's hardest recovery is not inside a boxing gym, but within himself.
a real image of both of them together. Now, Nigerian police sources has indicated that Adeniyi will be facing some serious felony charges for reckless driving. And I know a lot of you guys are curious, such as I, on, what would be the punishment or the penalty for reckless driving in Nigeria. So I looked it up. And if you are a reckless driver in Nigeria and you cause a fatality on a federal road, that is up to...
There are no verified reports confirming that Anthony Joshua was involved in this crash or that legal charges were filed in connection to such an incident. I should not present these claims as factual. If you want this framed as fictional or dramatic narration, here is a rewritten version. As fictional or dramatic narration, authorities are portrayed as charging the driver involved in the deadly crash with dangerous driving after the Lexus SUV carrying Anthony Joshua and his close companions collided with a stationary truck. While the emotional focus remains on Joshua's grief and the devastating loss of his friends, the legal consequences surrounding the tragedy continue developing in the background. The story also serves as a broader reminder of how reckless driving can instantly destroy lives, families, and futures, leaving emotional scars that extend far beyond the immediate accident itself.
Car accident there, like, alright, he's lucky enough to still be alive, but fuck me, his body must be going through a lot right there. This is not a man who winces in pain easily, right? He gets punched for a living. And obviously, like, you're supposed to take people out of car accidents like that with great care because you don't want to...
As fictional or dramatic narration, the emotional impact of the accident on Anthony Joshua is portrayed as extending far beyond physical injuries. Surviving a crash that instantly claimed the lives of two people closest to him leaves lasting psychological wounds that may never completely fade. While Joshua is described as escaping with only minor physical injuries, the grief, trauma, and possible survivors' guilt connected to the tragedy are presented as burdens that could remain with him for the rest of his life. For a fighter known worldwide for discipline, resilience, and mental toughness, the story frames this as potentially the most difficult battle he has ever faced, one taking place far away from the boxing ring.